Hello, welcome back to Infinite Roleplay. My name is Nelson, and once again, we're going to be delving into some Edge of the Empire rules. Not Edge of the Empire specific, but Fantasy Flight games, Star Wars RPG. Now, the rule is going to be two-weapon combat. You can find this rule, the clarification and stipulations and whatnot, in the conflict and combat section of any of the three main core books. That's Edge of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, and Force and Destiny. Now, what got me thinking about this rule is because I want to start using it as a player, and as a GM, I would like to share my knowledge of the rule. Really quick clarifications. Let's switch the screens. Payow. There we go. Now we see our friendly neighborhood one-eyed Wookiee. That's Willie. Yes, Willie, the one-eyed Wookiee. Anyway. Going up to what we talked about before, it comes right after. Making range attacks while engaged. If you look at the section right after that, it's two-weapon combat. Now it's, 4 or 5 paragraphs. It's not that in-depth. It's not very difficult because the beauty of Fantasy Flight games rule system and the dice pool is that the core mechanics for everything is pretty much the same, included as two-weapon combat. Two-weapon combat works almost identically to a combined skill check, as you could probably see by the bold combined check words here. Now, a combined check is when two characters say, hey, we want to both do the same exact thing, let's help each other do it. And you take the best characteristic of one of those two characters and the best skill ranks of the two characters, combine them to get a better dice pool. Now, two-weapon combat works pretty much opposite to that. It is one character, two separate weapons, whatever can conceivably be wielded in a single hand, so you have two hands, two one-handed weapons, and you look at the skills required to wield those weapons. Going over to a character sheet. I have a character here with a 4 brawn. So if I were wielding two melee weapons, such as two vibro knives, I would look at my melee skill. I have 2 ranks in the skill and 4 brawn. So the best case scenario is to use 2 identical weapons, or 2 weapons that uses an identical skill. It's the easiest way to do this, because the worst of brawn or brawn is still going to be brawn. The worst of melee or melee is still going to be melee. So the skill check is going to be 2 yellow and 2 green for me. Now, all melee rolls are a difficulty of 2 purple. However, when trying to achieve two-weapon combat, you have to add more purple. If the skill used for both weapons is identical, you add 1 additional purple to the roll. So the roll, the dice pool for that roll would be 2 yellow, 2 green, and 3 purple. Before making the roll, I would designate the primary weapon, and for the cost of 2 advantage or 1 triumph, I would also hit with the secondary weapon. Now, in the case of 2 vibro knives that are identical weapons, it's a non-issue. But say you were wielding a vibro sword and a vibro knife, or one vibro knife had certain upgrades and the other vibro knife was unupgraded or had different upgrades, then it would come into play. The great thing about a combined check is that, as you know, with any check, any combat check, whenever you roll additional uncancelled successes, you increase your damage output. Now, when making a two-weapon combat combined check, those additional uncancelled successes count for both weapons. So you may not hit too often, or you may not hit with both weapons because you're upgrading the amount of purple dice you have to roll with it. But you could start laying out some damage pretty fast. Now, the downside, the worst way to combine two weapons is when you have a pretty large disparity in your skill ranks and your characteristics. With this same character, as you can see, I have 1 rank in range light right here, and only 2 agility. So it's 1 yellow, 1 green. So, for instance, if I was engaged with an enemy and I had 1 melee weapon and a blaster pistol, I would have to take the worst characteristic for either of those. Now, range light uses agility, and agility is the worst characteristic between my brawn of 4 and agility of 2. So I would have to use my agility of 2. Now, looking at my skill ranks, I have only 1 rank in range light and 2 ranks in melee. The worst of those is, of course, the 1 rank in range light. So I would be rolling 1 yellow and 1 green for that combined weapon check. However, the difference is that when you combine 2 different weapons that use 2 different skills, the amount of purple dice you add equals 2. So for this skill check, I would have to roll 1 yellow, 1 green, and 4 purple. Because attacking within engaged range with a melee attack or a light ranged weapon is 2 purple. And for 2-weapon fighting and using 2 different skills, man, I've got to upgrade it to 4 purple. That's pretty difficult. Again, what we talked about last time, attacking with an engaged range with a ranged weapon, the enemy would gain a boost dice the very next round. So that is the worst case scenario. The best case, not with this character, because this character is meant to fight in melee, but with a ranged character dual wielding pistols, within short range, you can dual wield your pistols and only have to roll 2 purple dice. That's not a big deal. And if you're focusing on using range light weapons, you're going to have a lot of beneficial dice in your pocket, basically. So that's the strength of fighting with 2 weapons, or you could just do it for story purposes and be cool. Anything that would constitute 2-weapon fighting is usually any weapon wieldable in a single hand. However, if the question were to arise, what constitutes 2-weapon fighting, the decision for that resides upon your GM. Now, as a GM myself, depending on description, if you want to give somebody an old 1-2 punch, boom boom, I would let you roll a 2-weapon combat check to combine it. It makes sense to me. Say if you were wielding, a blaster rifle and you wanted to knee someone in the gut, and then while they're bent over, reeling from that gut shot, smash them in the back of the head with the butt of your rifle, I would constitute that as 2-weapon fighting as well. But again, those are a little bit more vague, and thus the decision of your GM to make. Anyway, I hope I was able to help clarify that rule, to impart some knowledge. And remember, in any of the 3 core rule books of either Age of the Empire, Age of Rebellion, or Force and Destiny, turn to your conflict and combat chapter to read more about a combined weapon attack. Till then, this has been Infinite Roleplay. My name is Nelson, totally immersed power gamer. Check you ladies and gents next time. Peace.